Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I hope you're having a fantastic day today. Dave K here today with a unique take on the DaveCasts. Today I'm talking about remote work. I've gotten so many questions on this, and it's not my typical wheelhouse category here in terms of what we talk about, but happy to share my experiences with you. I want to share those insights, perspective, having worked remotely now for a few years. I'm trying to think back. It's been almost 4 years now, hasn't it? Wow, that's kind of crazy to think that through. So a few of my main questions here I've got: working from home, is it worth it? How to get a job in the remote workspace, the future of work, and pros and cons in remote work here. So I'm going to go through those different categories. Took myself some notes here, so you may see me reflect on those. And excited to share a different take again with you, the podcast content style, sharing with you this perspective on all these fun things. Remote work, diving into it. And let me know, by the way, in the comments below if you like this video, how it goes for you, and if there's other categories you'd like to see me touch on, whether or not they stick with our usual theming. Again, lots of people have been asking me about this, kind of in the real world as well. So that's what brought me to this point. So I'm all ears on what you'd like to hear more about. Now, first question is pros and cons of remote work. So there's a few things, and I was thinking about this. There's different variables, and I think to myself, well, being able to live and work from anywhere is probably the number one thing. But what does that really mean, right? Am I able to do that with a regular job, right? Couldn't I just find a job in a city I want to live in? And the answer is yes, but I don't need to pick a city with a remote job. So one of the biggest perks I'm going to give you top 3. One of the biggest perks is you can work from anywhere, and you don't necessarily need to commit to a permanent location for that long. So for example, let's say I work remotely and I'm based out of Florida. That doesn't mean, at least in my case, that I can't go spend like a month in Texas, or I can't go spend a month in California, or spend a month in Hawaii, or spend a month in Europe and work from there as well. And that's a huge perk for me in obviously a variety of different ways, but love to be able to travel. There's, workations. I think that was the term they were using. It's like you can go somewhere on like a vacation type thing, but you can be working from there. And that's just such a beautiful thing. But it also allows you the flexibility to not have to live somewhere sort of exorbitant, right? So just before taking remote work about 4 years ago for myself, I was living in the San Francisco Bay Area. And, I was decent. Well, I liked the work. I was going to say decently happy with the job. Well, I liked the work, but I didn't love the location, right? And there were a lot of challenges around commuting in. There were challenges also around cost of living. I felt like I was living in a closet in San Francisco. And so being able to not only choose my own home base, but also be able to work from different locations at different times. To give you a couple of examples here, coffee shops, you work from a diner. You may have seen me from time to time work from a diner. I'm like, oh, hey, just showing you this food real quick, and then I get back to work. And I think I've done that in a couple different spots. Being able to work from any city, but also these hotel rooms, right? So if you're going on a trip somewhere, and even if you have to go into the office in the new location, you still have a commute factor there, which is not bad, but I'm just saying, you can work remotely from here and not have to worry about a commute. You can work remotely from there and not have to worry about a commute. So it's huge in a variety of different ways. But the commute was actually the other big thing I wanted to touch on. Not just choosing your home base and choosing where you can work remotely from in terms of short-term bases, but also you don't have to commute. And commuting takes up so much time. Reflecting back on my journey in San Francisco, again, in the Bay Area as a whole, for a while I lived in San Francisco, and then I moved down to like the Redwood City area. I was looking at pretty much an hour commute both ways, each way. So an hour up and an hour back, if you will, to work. And it was more pleasant, at least when I was driving it. It was not pleasant, in my opinion, when I was taking the Muni, which is the public transportation in the San Francisco Bay Area. But both present their own unique set of challenges, frustrations with traffic, with the having to worry about the crowds and transporting everything you want to bring with you to work, just on your back or something like that with the public transit. Again, whether driving or public transit is better. It's a little bit tricky. This is a conversation I could dive into as a whole, because in this country, I think maybe public transit doesn't function quite as well as I've seen it in my brief time in some other countries. Shout out to Ireland right there. But again, conversation for another time. Commuting is one of the big things, right? Consuming 2 hours of my day every day. You know how quickly that stacks up? You're looking at, 5 days a week? That's 10 hours. 10 hours in 1 week I was spending on commuting. So not commuting, I feel so fortunate for, and it also allows you some flexibility in terms of wardrobe, right? So I don't have to worry about sitting in an office. Am I wearing like my fanciest jeans, or am I just wearing some gym shorts right now? I'll let you guess which one it is, but it's option 2. So You've got the not having to commute. You've got the being able to choose your home base city. And you also have the ability to work from hotels and travel and work in different cities and countries, potentially, depending upon your particular employer, your employment agreement, etc. It's actually interesting as well. I had a difference, like a variance in that in terms of terms around where I can work from for how long. So a previous employer I had was like a 22-day thing. It's like you can only work in this place for 22 days. Whereas, lately it's been more along the lines of like, okay, over the course of a year, it can only be like a month or something like that. It's, more even dates. But I guess they're similar in a way, but they're also different. So make sure you know your employment agreement. But the flexibility around where I work from and not having to commute, absolutely huge for me. And I feel like there's a lot of enablement in your time there, right? It gives you time back, makes you more energized to work more effectively. Now, let me dive into those cons because they do exist. If you ask me, one of the biggest cons we're working remotely is not being able to effectively build these really strong work relationships. So that can apply to a variety of situations. It could be office friendships. It can also be collaboration, working with different employees on different projects, to really understand how someone works, understand what they're really trying to say. Sometimes it's easier in person, on a whiteboard, in a conference room, etc. Now, that is not necessarily always the case. You get to know someone, you get to know how they work, and maybe you can work really effectively online. But to build those relationships at least once or twice, I feel like is a big thing, which is going to tie into one of my solves here. What I think is a good solve is the occasional in-office meet. So that could be a quarterly, could be a 2 times a year, could be a 1 time a year, who knows. But I feel fortunate to have had that opportunity to fly to, you probably saw San Francisco a couple times in the past couple of years, or was it the past 1 year? Recently, to be able to go into the office, to meet people, etc., and, also work like sponsoring that. So it's great. So I don't have to worry about the crazy costs of hotels and things like that sometimes, depending upon where I'm going, etc. Sometimes I'm just going for fun or to help family, etc. But being able to take those office trips to meet people, get to know people, experience the city, experience the office, build the relationships, etc. is nice. It's not something I want to do every day. So if you're asking me, would I do it again? Is it worth it? I would totally do it again. It is 100% worth it for me personally. And everyone's different. And I know some people don't prefer remote work. Some people prefer more of a hybrid model. Some people prefer anywhere in the middle. Who knows? I also feel fortunate that my work can be remote, right? So that's another thing. Not everybody has that opportunity. But for me, I would totally do it again. There's so many factors in life that it's helped me with, being able to travel and see different places, my passion to want to see the world and being able to take work with me for that, right? Being able to help family on different situations, right? Family moving or family trying to move out of places or get settled, etc. It's been huge for me to be able to take my work with me to get done what I want to or need to get done from a personal, family, or just for fun sort of perspective. So that's huge. Yes, for me, it's definitely worthwhile. But again, pros and cons. I'd say another potential con is you don't get the on-site like snacks or food or anything like that in case they throw like a pizza party. You don't get that. But that is a-okay with me. I will totally take that trade-off all day, any day. Again, me personally. What's your take? Do you work remotely? Have you had that experience? Let me know your thoughts. Is it something that you would do again? Do you like it? Are you happy with it? How has it shifted over the years? Now, I want to talk about that as well. I've been working remotely for about 4 years now. The first role was I actually took the work that I was doing in San Francisco, and I went remote with that. And it was meant to be a temporary thing. And I was having some challenges. I was fortunate enough to be able to step out of the San Francisco Bay Area and help with some other stuff. And, help with family moving, things like that. I feel like I have the experience in moving and such. So it was really huge for me to be able to help with some of those challenges around how do we move, et cetera, like all these things. And again, that's huge and something you can't, in my opinion, you can't necessarily put a numerical value on. Some people say, how much more would you take for an on-site job versus a remote job? For me, again, remote is a big deal. But where was I even going with this point? That's the real question. Where I was going was it's given me so much opportunity, flexibility, and I would totally do it again. First job was a temporary deal, but then I was like, yes, this is it for me. I got to find a way to do this, and found opportunities to stick with that. Another job and another job have had me remote, and so at this point, I'm like, okay, I think this is something I can do forever, something we can stick with. And again, occasional on-site visit, I'm happy with it. Don't mind. I'm more than happy to. You send me somewhere, especially if you're going to cover me food-wise, all that. I love that. So nice experience to have. Happy with the semi-hybrid, really mostly remote model. So that's a winner. Now, another question on this was how to get a job in the remote space. And it's a good question. And it can be a tricky question. So I'll tell you, as I've looked at different job opportunities and as I've tried to bring my career in a particular direction, which could include benefits, and it does include benefits in some cases. I specifically look up what I'm looking for. So companies with remote jobs, right? Companies with highest percentage remote jobs. They're you know how Google works probably. If you're here, you probably know how Google works. But if you don't, you can go to google.com and search things. And there's a nice little search bar. It's GOOGLE .com. But you can search things on that website. It's very helpful. And so you can search companies with remote jobs, etc., and read through those jobs, get an understanding of what's out there. Then think about what you're doing now or what you've done in terms of work. Sort of align your skills with the remote job for you that makes the most sense. It's like, hey, I do, let's say, Excel, data analysis. And I'm looking online, and I can see a variety of different jobs. And maybe there's one job around like project management, and maybe there's some Excel in there, but there's also a lot of, maybe it's building PowerPoints, maybe it's communication, maybe it's, who knows how it's relevant to you or not. And then maybe you also found a data analyst role that's remote, right? Which aligns perfectly with what you're looking for. So you can start to think to yourself, okay, these are the types of jobs at the types of companies, remote jobs at certain companies that align with my experience. And then you try to kind of continue to align your experience in that direction within mind that you're going in that direction, right? So you can reformat your resume, you can apply for these things, see what sort of feedback you get, try to work off that to kind of build in the direction that you want to be going, if that's remote. Again, can be tricky. I have, prior to my remote work, had some very physical jobs and some very in-person jobs, including some warehouse type stuff. So I am going to silence my watch as well while we're doing this. I didn't even realize I hadn't done that yet, but now it is done, so cheers. And I wasn't able to ever take that job remote, right? That never would have happened, working in a warehouse. That's not a remote job. So I get that not everyone can have remote jobs, but this is, if it's something you're interested in, something you have the opportunity to do, or something you want to kind of create the opportunity to do, these are options. So I just sharing, again, based on questions. Again, I 100% stand by or stick with, like, not every job can be remote, right? Grocery store, we need, people to stock the shelves. We need people to check us out at the cash register. I mean, there's self-checkout lately too, but that's a whole different conversation. So many different conversations we could go on. So let me know if you want to hear about something else. We got the public transit, there's pros and cons of states versus other places. Anyways, there are my insights on that one. Now, the future of work is another very interesting question. Dave, do you think remote work is going to continue to happen? And it is another really interesting question. I think the short answer is yes. I think that you're going to see these remote opportunities continue as much as health things are getting back to normal. I think the health situation drove a lot. I can probably just say COVID at this point. Drove a lot of the enablement of remote work. It was okay, let's see what we can really do from a remote work perspective. And it took a lot of companies remote that weren't otherwise remote, or it allowed companies to start trying the remote thing. That being said, some companies were remote prior to that. So there's just a breadth of, obviously, employers and situations that they go through, but seeing that some were remote prior and hearing some of what I've been hearing around, yes, we're going to lean more into this, or we're going to stick with it because we were doing before COVID, etc., definitely makes me think there are opportunities and they will continue to exist in the remote space. Do I think there will be less remote opportunities than there have been in the past couple of years? Perhaps. Do I think that we're starting to level off and like everything you see today might be consistent in terms of remote work? I would not be surprised. I think over the long term, you may actually see remote jobs grow because there's less and less need to have people in person, right? I've got Zoom meetings, which I do on the computer. I can see people face to face. We can all look at each other. We can all look at each other. And we can do there's events, whiteboarding. There's whiteboard tools. There's, design tools so you can like interact live. There's obviously PowerPoint decks and things like that. Google's got their, Google Drive, etc. Everybody's got their, Microsoft. Everybody's got their tools, which you can use web-based, right? So even Excel, you can use like a web-based Excel, like a shared file of Excel, which is actually a recent discovery for me, but it's cool to see that Microsoft has that web-enabled share version as well. So again, so many options for employees and employers around remote work if that's something you want to lean into. So I definitely think that'll continue to exist, if not grow over the long. Yes, we might have had a huge amount of it, which might be a little bit smaller now, but I think it's going to continue to head in the trend in the upward direction around remote jobs. So there's my take on that. As for the what's ahead, I feel, again, so fortunate to work remotely, and I'm planning to leverage the opportunity that I have to work remotely because I want to figure out so many things in life. One, I'm very interested in figuring out what different places are like, to spend time and maybe even to live. So definitely want to spend more time in Europe. I want to check out more Mediterranean, like Italy, like Greece, like Spain. So many, I don't know if Spain, yeah, I think that's technically Mediterranean too. So many places that I want to see and experience, and I might try working from at some point because I don't get that, you don't get that much time off. So it's like, well, I'll work from there. I'm cool with that. Happy to do it. So that's one huge thing, which I'm hoping to leverage in the future for me and how it aligns into my remote work. That'll be very beneficial. And then figuring out where I want to be based long term too. Orlando has its pros and cons, I will say. Florida's nice and there's things to appreciate about it, but there are also challenges that come with it. So I'm thinking through that and I'm asking myself, well, do I want to try living somewhere else too? And again, my remote work situation, I feel very fortunate, allows me to be able to make that choice. Pretty much, in the States, I can be like, I'm going there. And, would there be some level of impact? Perhaps, but minor at most, compensation-based impact, but that'd probably be about it. So, again, feel super fortunate. And that's another beautiful thing about the States, I gotta say. We have so much areas to choose from. If you work remotely and your deal is, well, you have to be based in the States. Otherwise, there's at least going to be some big tax implications, et cetera. Let's say your company works in multiple countries. Obviously, there's big implications around switching countries, tax, etc. Who knows? Compensation is probably a big piece of that too. But at least in the States, if I go from somewhere that's a no state income tax state to another place that's a no state income tax state, there are tax implications. But I'm not even sure. I'm actually not even sure there are probably tax implications. Maybe for the employer, but there's really no impact on my end from a tax perspective. I'm like, okay, yeah, federal income tax filed. See ya, peace. Okay, so that's good. And it's a beautiful thing about the States. So 2 things I'm hoping to leverage in the future around that is travel more, take my work with me, workation more, which you've seen me do thus far. Again, some of the Europe stuff, some of the, even, I think earlier this year, I was thinking about, I did, Arizona. Yeah, I was working remotely in Arizona. And I'm pretty sure I was working remotely in Nevada a bit. When I went to Vegas, I think I took off a bit of time in Vegas too. Vegas was really cool to see and experience. I'm not sure I'm like probably the typical Vegas dynamic, but again, I loved like the architecture. There's some really cool things there. Some of the food was really good. So would love to continue to see more of the world. Would love to try maybe living in different parts of the world and feel super fortunate that remote work enables that for me. So we'll see what's to come. And that is my hot take on remote work. Very much feel fortunate for it, very much appreciate it, and very much something I wish to continue. What are your thoughts? Would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you remote worked? What are your thoughts on remote work? Do you think it'll grow? Do you think it'll shrink? Do you like doing it? Would you rather be in an office? What's the right percentage for you? So if you asked me specifically, I'd probably say maybe, I think it depends on the job and all of that and what's being done and all of that, but I want to say like twice a year is a good amount to go into the office, if they have to fly me in somewhere, but I wouldn't mind 4 times a year because teams change, especially in the world today. So many people, it seems like, leaving and coming to different jobs, meet new people, figure out how you work effectively together, coordinate on projects or efforts. There's a lot to that. So that's my takes, maybe 2 to 4 times a year, but it depends on the job, etc. And I've only been doing like 1 time a year, and I'm happy with that too. Don't get me wrong. I'm good. I'm Gucci. So that is Dave's take on remote work. And I think I touched on all the categories that I was asked about. If there was something you wanted to hear about remote work you didn't hear about, let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to make it an amazing day. We're so blessed for each and every day, whatever challenges you may be dealing with, just to be able to see me and hear me and appreciate this, the internet taking this to you, and the functionality, human functionality to be able to process what I'm saying and make logical sense of it. Where am I going with this? It's a beautiful thing, and we're very fortunate and blessed, and so I feel very fortunate every day. Don't forget to make it an amazing day, to focus on those positive vibes, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button, ring the bell to stay informed of future Dave K adventures coming your way. Now, I'm not kidding when I say that, because I'm figuring out what's next, but I really, really appreciate all of you being a part of it with me. So if you subscribe, it'll help make you even more of a part of it with me. Yeah, love that. There's some exciting things that I worked on side project-wise too, which again is another huge benefit with remote work. Not so much about the remote piece on that one. It's more about taking time off to work on side projects, but that's just, pros and cons. It's not necessarily that's pros, but it doesn't have to do with the remote work piece. But some side projects I've worked on. If you've seen some things for some of the side projects I've worked on, feel free to share your thoughts on those as well but I will share more, especially when I am good to do that. I don't know. I assume I'm good to do that, but I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to say anything until somebody says to me, like, go ahead and tell people. So, looking forward to sharing that all with all of you. And make it an amazing day. Subscribe and tell me what you want to see next. Until next time, play on. You're more likely to, by the way, probably going to see more of this style. I'm thinking about that. I like the hosting. The podcasting thing is fun. I'm thinking about my long-term goals in the entertainment space. So you might see more like this. Let me know your thoughts on that. And until next time, for real this time, play on.